Hello. And welcome to another fantastic, action-packed, thrilling episode of Philip's Podcast. Nice. Today's podcast is going to be Lesson 5.5, Parallel Lines and Transversals, Part 2. Our target for today's podcast, after this podcast, you should be able to identify alternate interior and alternate exterior angles. So vocabulary words we're going to talk about in our podcast today. A transversal. Remember in our last podcast we said a transversal is a line or line segment that intersects or cuts through parallel lines. Alternate interior angles are formed when a transversal cuts through or intersects parallel lines, and alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate exterior angles are also formed when the transversal cuts through or intersects parallel lines, and the alternate exterior angles are also congruent. All right, so this picture should look familiar. In our last podcast, we had a set of parallel lines, and we had a transversal that intersected or cut through the parallel lines. We talked about in our last podcast, when the transversal cuts through or intersects the parallel lines, we have corresponding angles that are formed, and we said corresponding angles are congruent. An easy way to remember that: corresponding starts with a C, congruent starts with a C. We also talked about how you can use corresponding angles, vertical angles, and supplementary angles to solve for the given angles in the problem. We said it was kind of like a puzzle. Once you get one, start filling in the rest of the pieces to the puzzle. All right. Today, we're going to say that when parallel lines are intersected by a transversal, alternate interior and alternate exterior angles are formed. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate exterior angles are also congruent. So if you're watching this podcast at home, you might want to pause it to jot down this definition in your notebook or spiral. Alternate interior angles are congruent. Alternate exterior angles are also congruent. All right, I'm going to color coordinate today's podcast with red and blue. I know, you're thinking green and yellow, green and yellow. Not going to happen until the Bears win the Super Bowl. Don't think it's going to be anytime soon. All right, so here we go. There's your yellow, but I'm not putting green in it. There's my transversal. It's cutting through a set of parallel lines, line P and line Q. Alternate interior angles are formed inside the parallel lines. So for my visual people, let's do this. Let's pull this down here. Let's pull this down here. Let's pull this down, this down, this down, this down. It's a little crowded, but we'll work with it. Okay. I'm going to cover this part up in purple. I'm going to cover this part up in purple. Okay. This right here is my interior. This is the interior or inside of the parallel lines. The purple is covering the, nice job if you said, exterior. Purple's covering the exterior or outside the parallel lines, plus 10. All right, so by definition, I can say this red angle, scoot some of this stuff over. By definition, I can say the two red angles are congruent. And the reason why these two red angles are congruent or equal to each other is because they are alternate interior angles. Alternate, they're on opposite sides of my transversal, and they're on the inside or interior of my parallel lines. Also, by definition, I can say these two blue lines are congruent to each other. Minus 10 bears. I should have said these two blue angles, but you weren't paying attention. These two blue angles are congruent to each other or equal to each other because they are alternate interior angles. They're on opposite sides of my transversal, and they're inside the parallel lines. Interior. Your study tip for today: alternate interior angles and alternate exterior angles lie on opposite sides of the transversals. So you can think of alternate as another word for opposites. Okay. Let's take a look at alternate exterior angles. Okay, so same picture except my angles are in a different spot, and I'm going to cover up plus 10 if you said the interior angles. So by definition, these angles that I'm pointing to in blue and red are exterior angles because they lie outside the parallel lines. So I could say that my blue angles are congruent to each other. The blue angles are equal to each other because by definition those are called alternate. They're on opposite sides of my transversal, and they're on the exterior of the parallel lines. Also, by definition, I could say my red angles are congruent to each other, equal to each other, because my red angles lie on the exterior. They lie outside the parallel lines, and they are on alternate or opposite sides of my transversal. So hopefully you can see the difference between alternate exterior and alternate interior angles. And your definition for alternate exterior angles: they're exterior angles on the outside of the parallel lines, and they are on opposite or alternate sides of the transversal. And most importantly, alternate exterior and alternate interior angles are congruent. They're equal. Again, there's your study tip. Same thing as before. Alternate is going to mean opposite side of the transversal. All right, we're going to work an example, but before we work the example, I got to go check on the Cubs score. Yeah. You could have told me. I know, the Cubs are losing. Big surprise. 103 years, but who's counting? All right, let's take a look at this problem, and we're going to practice some alternate exterior angles and alternate interior angles. In our last podcast, we said that you could solve this problem using corresponding angles. There's my vocab, corresponding angles. I'm going to solve this problem using supplementary angles, vertical angles, alternate exterior, and alternate interior. If you wanted to, you could solve this problem using corresponding angles. I'm just showing you a different way. Remember what I've said a million times. My job to show you as many different ways as possible. Your job is to pick the way that's easiest for you. So at the end of this podcast, if you say, you know what, Mr. Ropes, I'm going to stick with the corresponding angles, great. Do whatever works for you. Some of you are going to like the corresponding angles. Some of you are going to like the alternate exterior and interior, but let me go ahead and show it to you. So since I'm not going to use corresponding angles, I'm going to go ahead and delete this and get it out of here. All right. Here's my first measurement. They gave me 75 degrees. Remember, this is going to be like a puzzle. This is going to be my first piece that I start with. Well, for my visual people, I'm going to slide this piece up here, and I'm going to slide this piece up here. And hopefully you remember from earlier in the podcast, these angles are on the inside of my parallel lines. So since they're on the inside, I'm going to call them alternate interior angles. Interior, inside. Okay, I'm going to say, since this is 75 degrees here, alternate means opposite sides of the transversal. So the opposite side of the transversal would be angle 4. By definition, these two have to be congruent. So if this is 75, angle 4 is 75. And I'm going to call these angles alternate interior angles. Alternate interior angles. They're on the inside of my parallel lines, and they're on opposite sides. So 75 degrees. Go ahead and clone this guy so I don't forget. And you say minus 10 bears. That's going to go over with angle 4. Go ahead and lock it down so it doesn't move around on me. And I know. There's my degrees. All right. Alternate interior angles. All right. Take these pieces away. Let's see if I can find out some other things by looking at this picture. All right. I'm going to erase this. And we'll translate. Nice vocab. Plus 10 bears. 75 degrees up. Now, let's see. I remember something about vertical angles. Vertical angles are formed by intersecting lines, and they are across from each other, and they are congruent. So if this is 75 degrees, these are vertical angles. Angle 1 has to be 75 degrees. So I'm going to clone, pull them over. Angle 1 is going to be 75 degrees. Why? Because they are vertical angles. All right, with me so far? Vertical angles. All right, let's see what else I can do. Give myself some room, slide some stuff around. All right, since we just had a podcast on alternate exterior angles, let's cover up the middle part here. And I'll bring the front. So you can't say, minus 10 bears. Bam! Nice job, Ms. Ropes. Now I'm looking at the exterior of my parallel lines, or the outside, and I can say by definition, I have alternate exterior angles. So let's bring green down and green down. By definition, angle 1 and angle 6 are on the exterior, the outside of my parallel lines, and they're on alternate sides or opposite sides. So if angle 1 is 75 degrees, angle 6 has to be 75 degrees. Why? Because by definition, these are alternate exterior angles. Yeah. Minus 10 bears, minus 20, but who's counting? All right, there we go. Slide that up, slide that up. Angle 1, angle 6 are alternate exterior angles on the outside of my parallel lines, and they are congruent. All right, let's clone this guy. Angle 6. Lock them down. Much like the Cubs got locked down by the Pirates over the weekend, but let's not discuss it. So let's see if I can use some other information from this problem. Let's move this guy out of the way. Slide down here, slide down here. I'm thinking supplementary angles. Supplementary angles add up to 180 degrees. I'm thinking that angle 2 and 75 degrees form a straight line. So they have to be supplementary to each other. Remember the minus 20 I got earlier? I got 10 of it back. Supplementary angles. So to figure out the measurement of angle 2, I'm just going to do 180, straight line. minus 75 degrees. And when I do that, bada bing, bada boom, should give me 105. Bam! So we're going to say measurement 2 is 105 degrees. How about that? Look at that, guys. These are supplementary to each other. And these are supplementary to each other. Bam! I like them apples. So we're going to say angle 2 is 105 degrees. Yeah, I know. You shouldn't have said anything. Thanks for reminding me to put that degree marker there. All right, so we got supplementary. Let's see, what else can I figure out here? I have a set of vertical angles. Vertical angles, by definition, are congruent. Angle 2 and angle 3 are across from each other, and they are vertical. So I'm going to say angle 2 and angle 3 are 105 degrees each, vertical angles. Bam! All right, what else can we figure out here? We still got to get 5 and 7. So let's go back to what we talked about in our podcast earlier. I messed up in the last podcast, but I'm not going to mess up here. Order, bring to front. Bam! All righty, let's see. I think that I can use one of the things we talked about in the podcast today, alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior angles. I'm going to say angle 2 and angle 7 are what we say alternate exterior angles. They're on the outside of my parallel lines, and they are congruent. So if this is 105 degrees, this one has to be 105 degrees. Angle 2 and angle 7 are alternate exterior angles. All right, I think we only have one more angle to find, and that should be an easy one. It's kind of as easy as the Cubs losing. I'm thinking, well, a couple different ways. Let's use a vocabulary word from today, because I know all of you are screaming vertical angles, but let's use one of the vocabulary words that we talked about in our podcast today. So let me cover this up, bring to front. Bam! Let me cover this up, bring to front. Bam! I'm thinking one of the vocabulary words that we talked about today was right here, guys. Alternate interior angles. They are inside the parallel lines. So I'm going to say angle 3 and angle 5 have to be congruent or equal to each other because they, by definition, are alternate interior angles. They're on opposite sides of the transversal, and they're inside my parallel lines, so we say alternate interior angles. All right, so we solved them all. And if you notice, should be a pattern over here. If you take all your angles, 75 and 105, that should add up to 180. 105 and 75, 180. 105 and 75, 180. So there's a good way for you to check it. Make sure the angles over here add up to 180. All right, I think I have one more example for us to do. But I'm going to pause it and see if the Cubs are doing any better. So, BRB. All right, I know. Couple innings left. Maybe the Cubs will actually rally. Yeah, I think both of us know the answer to that question. So here we go. Let's finish up so I can go watch Cubs lose. Last example. We want to identify alternate interior and alternate exterior angles. They tell us the measure of angle 4 is 84 degrees. So come down to my pick. 84 degrees. I know, just pretend there's a degree sign there. So why? Just like I'm going to pretend that the Cubs win. Ha, that was a funny joke, Mr. Phillips. They want us to find the measures of angle 3, 5, and 6. So I'm thinking that these two angles have to be supplementary to each other. Plus 10 bears, nice vocab. They have to be supplementary to each other, or they have to add up to 180 degrees. So I'm going to take 180, and I'm going to subtract 84 from it. Let's see how my math skills are. I bet you they're better than the Cubs' baseball skills. That's going to be a 10. That's going to be a 7. That's going to be a 1. 10 minus 4 is 6. 17 minus 8 is 9. So I'm thinking hand recognition. All right, I'm thinking that angle 3 has to be 96 degrees. Why? When you add these together, they have to give you 180 because they're supplementary to each other. So we'll say angle 3 is equal to 96 degrees. All righty. Angle 5. Angle 5. Well, if I remember from earlier in this podcast, I'm thinking I can use a nice vocab word here. Let's erase this so we don't get confused. I'm thinking they're on the inside, so that makes me think interior. Angle 4 and 5 are alternate. They're on opposite sides of my transversal. So by definition, these are alternate interior angles. They're on the inside of my parallel lines. So by definition, they have to be congruent. Nice vocab, bears. So angle 5 has to be 84 degrees also. They are alternate interior angles. All right. I think that leaves us one more to find on this one. Angle 6. Well, by definition, I could say that these two are supplementary to each other. And I could say 180 minus 84 is 96. Or I could work it again, but that'd be a waste of time because don't you want to go watch the Cubs lose like I do? So I'm actually going to make my life easier, and I'm going to say, let's make this red. There we go. And let's clone it. And let's delete this one so we don't get discombobulated like the Cubbies. And let's get rid of that one. And let's put this one in green. And let's rotate. There we go. And let's rotate. Bada bing, bada boom. I'm thinking that angle 3 and angle 6 are on the outside of my parallel lines. So since they're on the outside of my parallel lines, that means they are exterior angles. And they are on opposite sides of the transversal. So that means by definition they are alternate exterior angles. Alternate exterior angles are congruent. So if angle 3 is 96, angle 6 has to be 96 degrees. Alrighty, guys. That's going to conclude today's podcast. Now we can go all watch the Cubs lose. I hope that helps you with alternate exterior and alternate interior angles. Stay tuned to our next podcast where we roll right into the Pythagorean theorem plus 10 bears. Nice vocab. See ya. Wouldn't want to be ya.